Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome back into Mining Stock Daily. Have a much-needed corporate update, one from Minera Alamos and President Mr. Doug Ramshaw. Minera published an operations update yesterday to the market, and I have to admit it was some of the best trading that equity has seen in quite some time, and hence the smile on Doug's face. We can say smile now because people can see your smile, Doug, now that we're recording video. But welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Trevor. Thanks for having me on. The day kind of played out as I thought, to be honest. I mean, it wasn't just the operations update, it was our Q2 financials. And you can guide as much as possible that, the first half is going to be weak and the second half things will pick up. But you still are going to have shareholders that haven't picked up on that, missed an interview I did, hadn't read a press release. And so they get that kind of sticker shock initially. And I think that's what we saw at the beginning of the day. And I was very comforted that people saw the upside that outlook presented. And the inflection point between first half operating performance and what we expect to be a stronger second half. So that message, I think, rang true. And we saw, very healthy organic buying coming in. And quite aggressive at times, which was not something you tend to see in this kind of forlorn gold tape, not just a Minera issue, a sector-wide issue. So yeah, it was a good day, I think, as we can kind of put first half activities behind us and look forward to a good second half of the year in 2024 ahead.
Yeah, Doug, I know the first half wasn't easy. It wasn't easy operationally, and it certainly wasn't easy managing the equity. Totally get that. Us gold investors can be a mercurial type, if you may. But I think the best way to summarize this shift is really the one graph you put in of the total material mined throughout year to date. And now, obviously, September, you have an estimate on there. But you're looking to go from basically zero in January to 100,000 tons in September. That's a gradual increase over time. A couple months there have been challenging. But I think that's a general summary of the improvements being made at Santana. Now, I guess it's up to you to give us kind of the minutia of those improvements. What has taken place? Remind us, what has taken place that has improved the operations thus far that's going to put the company on the right track for the remainder of 2023?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was important to put that chart in. September should be about 100,000 tons. And I think we're where we are in the Nicho Norte pit, pretty good grade too. July and August, I mean, matched everything we did through the first 6 months of the year. And that was really because we took prudent steps to approach some development. A bit of AC/DC in the background about to come in on my phone. I thought it was turned off.
I mean, on a good trading day, you should listen to AC/DC. Nobody's going to blame you.
But no, there was, and we've talked about it. It seems to be past us now, and we don't see water as an issue where it had been an issue in the last year, in particular, as this drought had really taken hold in terms of all local water sources. That's what happens after a few years of it. You really draw down the water tables. And so we focused on more development and infrastructure kind of work at site. As a result, the amount of mine material going on the pad was very limited, as that chart shows. But we saw that the situation had improved and is ongoing improving. So much so that we started pushing mining rates again. They're not where we're expecting them to go. I mean, this is not a 100,000 ton a month type operation where that's where we want to be. The goal is to get it back to about 300,000 tons a month. That we expect to be able to achieve once we put in a much needed pad expansion down there that will allow us to aggressively mine the main Nicho zone, something which will be highlighted in upcoming resource statement that's scheduled for next month. And that will see us push up to the kinds of mining rates that allowed Santana last year to kind of push 5 5,000 ounces in a quarter, which, although it doesn't seem like much, I think in that quarter we got it up to 5,000 ounces. It spat out $3 million in free cash. So it doesn't have to be a big operation to be very meaningful in terms of its cash generation. And that always goes back to my point. We're about stacking ounces that make sense and make money. And so it was sensible and prudent to kind of slow things down at a point. It frustrated people, but I think they would be far more frustrated if we pushed mining rates and blew some giant hole in our balance sheet, and we weren't prepared to do that. So our balance sheet is still very clean. It's 20 million of working capital, 8.2 in cash as of June 30th. Another key takeaway in that release was, we started spending a bit more money because we were expecting, after quite a period of time, to start seeing EVA refunds. EVA is a sales tax that's applied to a lot of things in Mexico, and certainly on our operational spend and the build spend. So for the last 18 months, a whole bunch of stuff has been going through the audit process down in Mexico. It's why you see tax receivables in our current assets and also our long-term assets. In total, they amount to about $9 million, and you kind of forget about them. It's kind of like a zero interest bearing savings account. And, as you're in production, it's a lot easier to get those recoveries. It still takes time, but we received $2.5 million from the AMLO government on Monday. And, I thought it was important because whilst things have, in places in Mexico, slowed down, and certainly things have become harder at times, the wheels of business are turning, and EVA recoverables are paid to mining companies like any other industry. It's not like we're pariahs in Mexico. And I think it's important when some people are kind of thinking that Mexico is going to become another Venezuela. It's just simply not the case. And so we expect more EVA refunds before year end. And that's allowed us to be a little bit more aggressive with some exploration spend and just planning for this expansion of the pad, which is a small capex. It's $2-3 million to kind of triple pad capacity there. All that is definitely aided by the fact that we've had this nice kind of savings account on the balance sheet, which we're now starting to see come through, and at a time where companies are struggling, needing money. I feel, again, it's one of those situations where we're in a blessed situation in this gold tape that, our funding requirements are met by what we have right now, and that's a nice position to be in.
What's interesting here, and I think this goes to, the benefits of the project. And I remember reading the snippet about the strip ratio yesterday and you said approximately 25% of the mined material was crushed versus 75% being sent directly to the leach pad as run of mine. I mean, this is pretty incredible here. Now, you've got a lot of exploration going on here with a number of different targets. Have you done any met work there at particularly Zada and Benjamin or Benjamin? And, what does that look like compared to the rest of the project regarding the strip ratio?
Yeah, I think most of our targets, from a strip ratio perspective, most of the targets are, exposed at surface. I think strip, if they have the goods, strip is going to be low. I mean, met work, no, there hasn't. Well, this is longer term planning about understanding what we've got. Benjamin is close to. I think even part of the historical work at Benjamin falls into our resource update, because we see it as an obvious satellite pipe. It's small right now, so we're kind of just trying to figure it out. It's less of a pipe, more of a ridge line, which is again going to really help in terms of strip ratio. I mean, Nicho is the top of a hill. It helps with regard to strip ratio. So no, the met's not been done on them yet. This is just really kind of understanding what we've got. And these are just the first targets of many on the property. So the resource update, and our main focus is very much to do with, okay, what is the Nicho complex like? Is it something that can support, 6, 7, 8 years of even a modest 25,000 ounce a year mine. Because if that's the case, then that modest resource can probably support, 60, $70 million of free cash generation. Not bad for a small resource at a very low cost mine build in terms of what you can do with that capital and reinvesting both exploration at Santana, but also other projects within the group. So, I think probably from a development point of view, more drilling in time will focus on Benjamin just because it's close to the Nicho complex. And then there's other targets we really want to get to as well, but they're a little further away, and so we were trying to look at the things that were closer to our existing pad and facilities first. So this was as much about telling us what we have for long-term planning as it was in terms of, informing the market, so to speak. I mean, we need to have 2-3 year plans in mind when looking at these targets for, okay, where is there going to be a larger central pad facility, or does a pipe support having a smaller satellite pad associated with it and its location? All that comes into play now in terms of thinking what you would be doing 2 and 3 years out. So
Hmm.
I hope that it informs us, greatly from an internal perspective more than anything else.
It's hard to believe, and even as a shareholder of the company, that the maiden resource estimate for Santana is due this quarter, Q3, as you mentioned. Give us kind of a rundown. Q3 is a long time. We talking weeks here, maybe prior to Beaver Creek, Doug, or is this something that maybe be pushed out later in the quarter?
No, well, I mean, we've only got one month of this quarter left, so in that regard,
So weeks, weeks.
it's not. I would argue it's weeks. It can't be months. So yeah, I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, there's a couple of things I'd like to just clear the decks on ahead of Beaver Creek, because you don't want to be having a whole bunch of meetings and then only a week later being able to say, oh, this is what we'd like to have talked to you about in those meetings. So, in a perfect world, we'll see the resource out before Beaver Creek, and also the long-awaited Ceradoro funding partner named. That's it. The frustration in shareholders is very interesting. I mean, yesterday I was dealing with, I could see on the chat rooms and whatever a certain degree of toxicity, and it's quite funny when the stock bounced because, you know, the whole mood changed, and I get it. I mean, this whole gold tape in general has been pretty depressing, whether it's in Minera stock or so many others. It was amazing how finishing green seemed to shift people's mindset. Um, but I've seen people talk about timelines missed and stuff, and sometimes that's us. Sometimes that's us for very smart reasons. Like we took a lot longer to secure additional surface rights for the Cerro Dorado project because it allowed us to effectively submit permit applications that would cover not just the base case, but something much bigger. And you do it all in one go, and then not having to go back at any point in time. So that's kind of on us, but it's a business decision. Then there are the ones which kind of just crush my soul because we signed the term sheet for the funding package and with our funding partner. And it was their term sheet, and we were talking about a July 15th closing date. But when the lawyers get hold of things, it's amazing how things will drag and drag at times. So I know they're putting their work into it, but sometimes from a company perspective, you pull your hair out, and you can obviously see how many lawyers I've had to deal with. Um, so, that again, not just for us, but for our funding partner, I think we'd like to be able to get that closed again before Beaver Creek because we want to be able to point to the fact that it's closed, obviously, but also, they want to show what they've just done, and we want to talk about our partner there. And so that's what we're pushing for sure. I mean, the good news on that, as I said in the press release, was it passed all technical due diligence in June. So this has really just been a legal, ensuring a Canadian agreement is, everything's valid and appropriate according to Mexican law and stuff like that. But it really has been just drafting at this point. Now that takes time, and also again, you just think, oh God, it's a little bit of extra money every time there's another cut on a legal document, but that's part of doing business. So yeah, I think both those hopefully we can have done by Beaver Creek.
Okay, very good. I look forward to it because I think you and we actually have a meeting set up to do this once again. So we'll have a couple news items to chat about in a couple of weeks' time here. Doug, my last question, let's just make it as simple as we can and then leave it at that. Is Santana on track? Is it in a better position now to deliver that vision that you've always had that maybe was in jeopardy 6 months ago?
I don't think it was ever in jeopardy. I know some people thought the sky was falling, and we never did. So, it might have appeared that way, but there was never a sense in our mind that that was the case. In terms of being on track, well, we have a better track ahead of us now, absolutely, and we'd always planned for that. We are extremely optimistic that the back and forth that has been going on for months now should lead to the pad amendment permit being received sometime. Hopefully, it could. We've been kind of internally thinking, well, it could drop any day. It wouldn't matter because it's the rainy season. You're not going to construct that pad in the rainy season. But we are optimistic that as the rains subside, that permit amendment will come through. And then we can really jack up Santana considerably. And I mean, from where we are now and where we will be in Q3, but I think be able to present Santana as a consistent, spitting out 5,000 to 6,000 ounces a quarter producer next year, which is an absolute monumental shift, obviously, from where we've been this year. So, I've had people question our operating team and stuff like that. And as someone that has backed our operating team with a lot of my own money, I have absolutely resolute in their experience and abilities down there, as well as our business model being as smart now as it ever was. But I realize at the same time, we've also taxed people's patience with those kinds of statements. I've just tended to back it up with my money, and because of certain news events coming up, obviously I'm blacked out right now. Otherwise, I'd probably, be doing more of the same. Maybe that's just getting reckless at this stage. I don't know, but honestly, it's the best way I can ever express my confidence in not just Santana, but Santana, Cerro Oro, the whole business model, and the team we have that's delivering that business model. I'm just the orator of their lives.
Yeah, yeah. I have been trying to pick away a little bit here and there the past couple of weeks, so I'm happy to see the action yesterday in trading, and I'm excited to see you in a couple of weeks. We'll catch up again. Doug, thanks so much for your time, and congratulations on this update. And I know it was a long time coming. 6 months probably felt like 6 years, but it seems like it's on the right track.
Thanks, Trevor. See you in Beaver Creek.
Absolutely. That's your update from Minera Alamos, everybody. They trade on the TSX Venture with MAI.